Let's see. Maybe we do. Zooming in here a little bit. Okay, there we go. Hello, everyone. Oh, we suddenly got 5 people watching on YouTube. Uh, really sorry about starting late, but we were, always the first time when we do it, it takes a little while to set things up properly. So we were just spending some time making sure that the viewing and listening experience is good for everyone. So we're going to spend the first 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, just talking without any agenda to let people join and make sure everything is working correctly.
Okay.
And then we're going to start, and hopefully we're going to go on for, I don't know, 1 hour to 90 minutes, maybe. We'll see how long it goes, but this is something I've been wanting to do for a long time. So we can keep going for as long as it makes sense, but not too long, of course. I know it's quite late, starting to get quite late for some time zones. So I have my uncle here. We're going to do official introductions very soon. But those of you that have already joined, this is my uncle, Shuja Hoda, and he's going to be joining me for a hopefully interesting conversation about a very big topic that I know people that have been following me are always very interested in talking about. And that's mental health and psychology and depression and all that stuff that we all kind of have to deal with in all of our lives, whether you want to or not. And so my uncle has been working as a psychologist for many years. So I thought rather than me just talking about it as a layman and as someone who has some experience with it, we can do a more of maybe an academic conversation, or more of a conversation where we have someone who actually knows about these things. So welcome. I call my uncle Abbi. For those of you that don't know, that's uncle basically in Urdu. How are you feeling doing this thing? Is this new for you?
Yeah, thank you for inviting me, first of all, because we did a little one before, long time ago, a couple of years ago, and then this is a proper event. So yeah, of course, as a psychotherapist, I'm not a psychologist, I'm a psychotherapist. Yeah, so I can see all the signs of anxiety. My heart's beating a bit faster, my mouth's a bit dry,
Hmm.
feeling a funny sensation in my tummy.
Yeah,
But yeah, it is a lot more complicated than I thought it was. But hopefully the people watching can have a good experience. It's more about the listening than about the looking. Yeah. So I hope the
absolutely.
topics are covered that are meaningful
Hmm.
for people who are watching.
Yes, and we already have a comment I can see from Nihal Hassan, who's also my
Okay.
uncle, actually. So welcome to you.
Hello.
If you want to take part in this conversation, you can do that by um, just leaving a comment from wherever you're watching. This should be live on X, LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube.
Wow.
So feel free to write a comment, and then we'll see it here. And as we go, you can ask questions, and I can bring those up as the conversation progresses. But the plan for today is to do a little bit of intro and background
Yeah.
for my uncle, and so you can get to know him a little bit better. It'll also allow him to get a little bit more used to doing live streams, because it can be a little bit nerve wracking in the beginning. So
Sure
that's,
is.
yeah. So it's very normal. So we can do that for the first 15 minutes or so, and then we can go more into the topics. And so what I hope to touch on today is, I mean, we're in 2026 now. It's early 2026, and from a psychological mental health point of view, it's perhaps the hardest time to exist in human history in many ways. Um, and so it feels like the world is moving so fast that if you don't have some frameworks that you are familiar with, or you know how common these problems that we go through are for all of us, it can feel like it's a lot to handle. I know that's been the case in my life for many years, still is in many ways. But talking about these things openly just allows you to see that the problems that you're struggling with are also problems that I'm struggling with or have in the future, or in the past rather. And all of us go through it, to some degree. And so that is just what makes this quite nice to talk about, is just you go, oh,
Mm.
okay, I'm not alone in this. And just that can be nice to have.
Sure. One of the things is that the human mind, the brain, is designed that way that we are a thinking animal. Yeah. So our thoughts become the lions and tigers um,
Yeah.
of our, so we are reacting to that, to our thoughts, than to real life events.
Right.
And that if the event is in the past, then we become quite upset, angry, depressed. If the thoughts in the future, we become anxious, stressed, worried. You know, so it's
Absolutely.
mostly about understanding that it's our thinking, and every human brain is designed that way. Yeah. So
Hmm.
some are more stuck in their thinking, some are a bit less, but most people have thoughts. I mean, there's nobody, no human who doesn't have thoughts. So
Absolutely.
that's one of the big things, is that, yeah,
Yeah, and we
just
we also live during a time where all of us are kind of scrolling on the phone for hours a day, and it's like
yeah.
a difficult life of a person that you will never meet is put right in front of you, and you go
Mm-hmm.
like, take this person who's really
Yeah.
suffering now, emotionally go through what they're going through for like a minute, and
Mm.
we don't see that, like, all of the content we are a lot of the
Yeah.
content that we're consuming puts us in different emotional states, and that can really be hard because back in the day, the life of a Palestinian kid, even though it was
Mm.
really hard, was not something that you were aware of thinking about. But now
Sure.
you're kind of given that, like, care about this and care about this and care about this, and it can be a little bit too much for the brain to handle, because at the
Absolutely.
end the companies are just doing whatever they need to show you the content, so it'll, you'll
Yeah.
stay on the
Hmm.
platform for longer, but it has a real effect on our lives, and it affects
Sure.
us.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
we can also touch on those things as we go.
Mm.
So
Mm.
I think we don't see all the numbers here, but we see 9 people on YouTube already, which is pretty good. And then
Fantastic.
usually there's also a good amount of people on X that also watch. So I'll just make sure that uh, the live streams on the different platforms are running um, properly, and then we can begin.
Yeah.
Again, if you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to put it in the comments, and you can ask us anything really. But yeah, LinkedIn is also working, and I'll just check Facebook. I can't promise that we're going to be able to um, cover everything that you ask about, but I'll definitely make sure to um, put take it in and make it a part of the conversation. Okay, I think we're good now, so we can
Hmm.
officially begin.
Hmm.
um, so I'll just do a quick intro for like the final, Spotify and YouTube. Welcome everyone to the 5th episode of the Rafid Hoda podcast, which was started recently. Today is we have a special episode. I'm joined by my uncle, Shuja Hoda, who's a psychotherapist, not a psychologist, and we are going to be talking about mental health, which is a bit topic, of course. And if you've been following me for a while, you know that it's an important topic for me, and I also like to talk about it. So we have several things today that we're going to touch on. Things like depression, anxiety, having a different kind of brain. If you maybe think that you might have something called ADHD, which is very popular for a while, at least in social media, autism, dyslexia, whatever it might be. How are brains different? How has the brain evolved over time? Why do we do things that we don't want to do, but we still do it anyway? So we're going to want to go into those things. But first, we're going to start with an introduction. And then I'm going to ask my uncle a couple of questions so that you can get to know him a little bit better. And we're going to go right back to when he was born in the 60s, and then come back now to 2026, and then we're gonna go into like more kind of psychology and all these questions that we have. So as we're going on, if you have any questions, please feel free to write your question down wherever you're watching this, and I'm going to make sure to make it a part of the conversation. So, welcome. And can you
Thank you.
maybe just start with a quick introduction now, and then we'll go back and do a kind of deep dive?
Sure, sure. So, as you said, my name is Shuja Hoda. Currently working as a psychotherapist in the National Hospital for Neurology and Neurosurgery in London. And I work on a ward which has patients admitted for 4 weeks for their, a problem called functional neurological disorder. Yeah. So they don't have a brain issue, but they have a body issue. Yeah, so they present as a stroke, as Parkinson's, as MS, as various kinds of problems, but it's not due to their damage to the brain. It's about their reaction to stressful events over the years. So we do a 4 week program where I am the psychotherapist. I have a physiotherapist and an occupational therapist, and we form a team with some nurses and doctors as well, but they don't directly get involved. So we involve in a program where we try to fix them. So yeah, easier said than done. But yeah, it's such a new topic that's come into um, um, people looking at it and working on it, and it's being recognized. Yeah, um, sure. So I work there, and I've been doing that since 2021. But I'm a psychotherapist since 2010. So I've been doing it for a long time. I studied masters in CBT for 2 years, 2008 to 2010, and then I'm qualified. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
is that
Awesome.
fine?
That's a great place to start. And
Mhm.
now I want to go back. Uh, and let's go back to when you were born. Can you try
Mhm.
to paint a picture of where the world was? Where were you born? Which area? And yes, give us a sense of that time.
Yeah. So I was born the year and the month England won the World Cup
Oh.
for the only time ever. So it
Hmm.
was probably celebrated a lot in England, but probably in India nobody knew about it. So I was born in a small town. I mean, it's a capital city, but it's a small town of Patna, which is in Bihar, in my mother's house. My I have parents' house, and my father was a inspector of factories. So when I was born, after a year or so, he moved to England to study further. So he wanted to be a nuclear scientist. So came to England and studied in one of the London universities, nuclear physics. And he um, probably missed his family. So he called my mum and me over. My brother and sister stayed in India. They were a bit older, so they stayed because obviously, as a student, he couldn't afford much. So we were in a very small flat. And yeah, my mum, who was a housewife up to that point, really struggled. She found it very hard to not have all her children together, and I used to cry a lot because I used to miss my brother and sister. I was hardly 2 years old, and eventually he passed his course, and then he called them over. So he went and to India and brought them to the UK. So I started because I was so much disruptive in the family because I was crying constantly, looking for my brother and sister. They put me in a um, with a baby minder. Yeah, and my mother started working in a factory, perfume factory. Yeah, which helped her to get distracted, and she had some own money that she could buy stuff from. And then when my brother and sister came, we moved to our own house in Greenford in London, and then there was yeah, so that's where I started infant school. So which is kind of reception, I think.
So you're saying like when England won the World Cup in football, that would be 1966, right? So we're talking
66,
like late 60s
late
that
60s.
you're a young human in London.
Yeah, so this is more like 70s now.
Hmm.
So um, in 1970, India beat England in cricket for the first time, which was
Uh-huh.
quite a big celebration. So I didn't know about it, but I heard people talking, and
Mm.
because football, because England were the World Cup winners, it was
Yeah.
constantly played on television. So I thought that my grandfather, who was the only Indian I knew, that
Hmm.
he hit the ball so hard it went in the goal, and India beat England. You know,
Oh.
that was my concept of cricket at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was quite little, and yeah, when my brother and sister came, so at least I had company in the house,
Mm.
and then I started school, made friends there. Um, it was a very different time. It was a very
Yeah.
different time in England. Yeah, and it was well, I have memories mostly from the videos that my father used to make. He used to had to have a 8 camera that he used to make, and
Hmm.
we watched it on this projector on the
Yeah.
wall. And so that's where some of the memories are from. And
Right.
from what I could see, I was quite a naughty child. I would jump around in the videos and try to catch the camera. Um, and yeah, we had a lot of parties at that time. So there was a full small community of people who were from Bihar, where Patna is. Yeah,
Hmm.
and we used to meet up a lot. Yeah, so there was this group called.
So you
Yeah.
grew up in London, and when was it that you came back to India?
So when my father finished his masters, he got a job. That's how he could support us. And during that process, he met this economist called Dr. Schumacher. Yeah,
Hmm.
and Ernest Fritz Schumacher, E.F. Schumacher, who
Hmm.
was very famous for his book called Small is Beautiful. And in the conversation where they had, because my father went there to become a nuclear scientist, and his ideas were different, and this guy's talking about Gandhian philosophy, about small is powerful and beautiful. And he convinced my father that uh, India should be more appropriate technology. And that's why my father went back to India. So we all went to this other very famous town of Varanasi, or Banaras, as better known as, with quite a holy city. And that's where I went my first class, started school. And yeah, so we used to live in a campus. um, and India was very different at that time as well. It was long time ago, so India was a very different country, still growing. It was a newly independent country. It's been less than 30 years.
Mm.
Yeah.
So how was it? Do you remember feeling the difference of being in England and India?
Yeah, I mean, India is a lot hotter, a lot noisier. Yeah.
Yeah.
But socially, I mean, like when I was in England, apart from school friends, I didn't know many people outside. It was just me and my siblings. We used to play together, cycle outside. Um, but when I came to India, we were like living in a community.
Mm.
So there's lots of children, and we go out and we play the whole day, and we're playing flying kites and playing marbles and doing all kinds of stuff. And it was socially very different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Initially, I struggled with the language because nobody could understand my English,
Mm.
and I had to. My Hindi or Urdu was very accented, so people struggled to understand that. So I used to feel quite a bit lonely. But
Yeah.
as you know, once you make friends and you start to pick up the language very well, yeah, I knew the language anyway, but I just started speaking a bit better. So yeah, that was very different for me.
Mm.
And lots of family. I mean, everywhere we went, any time we went back to Patna to my grandparents' house, there'll be so many people would come and visit us, and it'd
Mm.
be quite exciting.
So you liked that community feeling that you had in
Oh,
India
definitely.
more? Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was so much more kind of social, and I got a lot more attention, which was quite good because I was the
Mm.
youngest in the family, so I
Yeah.
got a lot more attention, which was quite nice.
Mm. And where did you spend your teenage years? Was it in England or India?
So after year four, when I was in
Mhm.
year four, my father decided to move to Lucknow.
Okay.
So Lucknow was the capital city of the state. It's a beautiful town full of parks.
Mm.
So I think one of his decisions was he went there as a youngster when he was training to become inspector of factories, and
Mhm.
he heard the language. The Urdu was so beautiful that he
Mm.
said, "Some point I'll come with my family here. I want my
Mm.
kids to speak this kind of language." So. Unfortunately, we never picked up that language, but we moved to Lucknow, where he set up his own institute, and so I spent like all my schooling there and studied at university there as
Wow.
well.
And take us to your teenage years, because
Mhm.
the teenage years, the early ones, is when you start becoming a person, and life starts becoming maybe harder than when you were a kid, when you're just thinking about playing and having fun. So, what type of struggles did you have growing up? Anything you want to share from that time? Any
Sure.
insecurities or anything like that? Because I
Yeah.
know we have a pretty young audience too. A lot of people from like high school or young college. Is there anything you want to mention there that
Yeah,
you remember?
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, one of the biggest things was both my father and my brother were geniuses. They were
Mm,
very good at maths and physics and engineering and stuff, and I was nothing like that. So there was a lot of pressure, especially from my father, to study maths and physics and chemistry, and he would ask me, because he was abroad a lot, so he used to still work in England, uh, um, in different projects, for his institute, bring in funding and stuff. So most of the time he was away, um, doing all of that, and then, um, when he used to come back, he'd always say, "Shuja, bring your book," and I would be panicky. I would absolutely be terrified. And he'd look at my book and he would ask me questions, and I would go completely dumbfounded. I didn't have, and he would get angry with me that, well, you're such a stupid boy, you can't even, and because my brother was top of the class, he was obviously
yeah.
very good at, so he was the top of the
That's my
class.
dad, by the way, his
Yeah.
brother.
There you go. Yeah. So he know his life is sorted. My
Mm,
brother's life is sorted. He's going to be an engineer. He's so good. Yeah. But I think my parents were a bit concerned. My mother supported me a lot in
yeah.
that. So when we moved to Lucknow, we moved to an area where it was quite an empty. So there was houses, sporadic houses. So there was a
Mm,
lot of plots of land. So we used to play cricket there.
hmm.
So I made quite a few friends who were about my age, who were still my friends. And I used to sneak out of the house, and if my father was like, "I'll delay it so much, I'll come back very late." Yeah,
Mm,
so that he's gone to bed, or and I used to get told off about that. Yeah,
yeah.
so I had a in studies I had a self-esteem issue. I was still in the top set. Yeah,
Mm,
I was doing okay in maths and science,
hmm.
but yeah, for some reason I had that anxiety about, and that impression that I was not good enough. Yeah, because I was comparing myself to my.
And I think that's one of the things that I
Oh,
think all of us can identify with a little bit at
sure,
least. And it's one
sure.
of the things a lot of people, like younger people in India, for example, that follow me, they say that there's an insane pressure from
Mhm,
parents that you have to succeed in this very narrow
mhm.
academic sense of getting, and not even in all subjects, but specifically in the math, physics, and chemistry subjects in order.
Sure.
And so
So
that yeah.
there's only two choices in India. You either become
Mm,
an engineer or doctor.
yeah,
Yeah. So that's the only thing given to you. And if you can't,
yeah,
if you're really poor at studies, then the
yeah,
parents give up and say, "Oh, you go into commerce or whatever, and you
yeah.
study that, and I don't know what you'll do."
So that was still the case back then, as it is today.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course, yeah, sure.
And so you obviously took a very different path.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
so tell us a little bit about that journey. When was it that you
Sure.
felt that first that you wanted? Yeah.
Yeah, so I still persisted and I studied maths. So I
Hmm.
did mathematics, physics, and chemistry for my A levels. Didn't do very well, but I still got into university to study maths, and statistics and economics. I don't know why economics. I thought my father didn't know much about economics, so I'll study that.
Hmm.
Even though he had a lot more idea, he was very good at economics as well. Yeah. Um, so I failed my first year in maths. Yeah. So I was very social, from right as I said, I used to be outside most of the time. I
Hmm.
used to much closer to my friends' parents than to my parents. So I used to be outside most of the time. So I was very social. So when I went to university from a very Catholic boys' school, which was like everything was the cane. You were caned for even looking outside the class. So what happened was I was um, yeah, university, when I first got freedom, it was real freedom. You didn't go in, or I went in the class, gave my attendance, sneaked out, and then I was with my friends, and especially meeting girls for the first time. You know, it was really exciting. So we had a group called Rainbow, where there was 7 boys, 7 girls, and we kind of really made a cultural group, and we were part of the cultural. It was quite a niche thing because obviously India, you understand, that is very kind of, I mean, in those days it was very different. You know, boys can't talk to girls. It was completely taboo. So we were the first one that introduced that, it's okay. We would just sit in botany, because there was nobody was from botany. So we sit, none of the professors could pick it up. So we used to sit there and chat, and go to the canteen and have samosas and enjoy ourselves. And yeah, so when it came to exams, I really struggled because I hadn't studied, I hadn't prepared very well. You know, missed most of my lectures, and maths is not that easy. You have to keep practicing. So I failed my maths exam, and I was absolutely gutted. Because it was quite embarrassing. In
Mm.
India, everybody, even at graduation level, if you fail, you stay in the same class. So all your friends have gone to second year, you're still in the first year, and it's quite and my parents were very upset with me, and it was quite difficult. And then eventually, I started going to class. I initially felt quite embarrassed going, but I went and made an effort. And then there was in my new class, there was a boy who was studying psychology. So he's doing maths, statistics, and psychology. So I started hanging out with him, quite kind of. We became friends, and he he took me to his psychology class because he needed subjects to do experiments, and I really loved those. And then I went to Delhi and bought this Hildegard Atkinson's Introduction to Psychology, an amazing book. And I read that, and I said, "Oh, I want to give up maths. I want to be a psychologist." Yeah. So I sat for an exam for Masters of Psychology in Clinical Psychology, and just preparing through that book. And out of 250 odd people who sat the exam, I came fifth. So I got
Wow.
admission. Yeah, I got admission in psychology. So I was helped a little bit because we had a family member, not family member, a family friend. Um, her, their daughter was teaching. She was a teacher, so she gave me a little bit lessons, and yeah, so I got into psychology that way.
That's awesome, and I think for people listening that are maybe a little bit in the same boat as you, but more on the younger
Mm,
side and also in high school, university, is there
mm.
any advice you'd like to give that person that maybe doesn't want to go into engineering or
Sure.
medicine?
Sure.
How do
There's
you
so
approach
many. I
it?
mean, I hope now in India people realize, because a lot of my younger cousins are in psychology now. They're
Mm.
studying psychology in India. They're um, doing other courses, and now some of them are qualified and doing stuff. So in India, it's beginning because India was mostly like any mental health problems, go to your local temple or mosque or within the family. You don't talk about it. But now it's beginning, especially in the bigger cities. There are a lot of good institutes, and people are starting to recognize psychology and psychotherapy as an option.
Mm.
Hmm.
Uh, is there any, because we know that when it comes to this stuff, there's a lot of stigma, mental health,
Hmm.
psychology, anything like you're
Yeah.
labeled as like, oh, you want to deal with crazy people. And why
Mm.
don't you want to? Did you face anything like that from family members or friends or anyone?
Not personally, because
Mhm.
living in England, it was very different. Yeah,
Right.
living in England, yeah, this was more acceptable in some ways, and at least my parents were happy I'm doing something. So,
Hmm.
so yeah, I didn't turn out the good for nothing kind of boy who's not doing anything. I started to do very well. Yeah, so
Mm.
once I found my niche, I started to excel in that. So I think they were quite pleased, and yeah, I mean, people did have this huge notion about me. How do you deal with this? All these crazy people. I said, no, the
Mm.
people like you and me. We
Yeah.
all have problems, and absolutely,
Mm.
it's normal. Yeah, because life is stressful, so of course people react to it with more stress placed on them, and that makes them struggle.
Mm. Awesome. So
Sure.
I think that's pretty good background.
Mm,
I
mm.
feel like I know you better myself, and
Thank you.
maybe we come a little bit closer to now and to tell us a little bit more about like the because you see patients, right? Uh, Tell us a little bit more about how exactly that happens and for how long you've been doing it, and then we're going to go more into like asking specific questions about depression, anxiety, and things like that.
Sure. When I first came to the UK, to London, I came to see my uncle who was going to have a triple heart bypass, and this was his third one. So he thought, I'm going to die, and my kids, who were very little at that time, they're going to be left. So he said, "Oh, Shuja is the spare boy." I was just finished my psychology. He said, "Come over here, and just in case." So I came here. I said, "Oh, wow, going to London, lots of memories, childhood memories from there." So I came to London, and for a year we were just not doing much. But he used to work in a hospital, so I used to go and help him in the hospital. He was a OT, and there was a Mauritian guy coming, so he used to talk Hindi. So he had a good relationship with my uncle. So he said, "Oh, why doesn't your nephew do mental health nursing? That's one way to get into the country." So I said, "Okay, yeah, if I can get into the country, I can study here." So I initially did mental health nursing, and once I qualified, I worked on a ward for quite disturbed people. It's called psychiatric intensive care unit. So these people were like locked in a hospital on the orders of the Secretary of State uh, um, um, of
Wow.
Health. Yeah, so they were locked because they have massive criminal records because of that. So I worked with them, and uh, of course, it's a very controlled environment. So it's not actually as dangerous as people believe. So yeah, that was my initial thing, and then I went into brain injury, where because of my psychology degree, I started helping manage challenging behavior. So I became a behavior therapist. So that was a slight shift from my nursing
Hmm.
into behavior therapy, and I really enjoyed that because I used to create these behavioral programs, and and when they work fantastically well, phenomenally well. There was a specific thing that I did with my consultant. So there was a patient who had a brain injury, Indian girl, and she put too much pressure, like Indians do. That I need to stand up and walk. She was a quadriplegic because her father tried to kill her because of you know
Wow.
she wanted to marry somebody
Oh my
not
gosh.
who was not a Sikh. So she was had anoxic brain damage, and it damaged her limbs. So, but we were doing working program. We thought she had potentials, so we did a behavior program, and she did so well, just amazingly, walking and engaging and doing things. So my consultant said, "Shuja, can you present this somewhere?" So my ward manager said, "Oh, why don't we present at the Royal College of Nursing?" Because she was a nurse. So I said, okay. So we went to Nottingham University, and I saw this massive hall, which seemed like several thousands of people. Of course, it's not possible. But in my mind, it was like massive hall. I said, I will be standing there talking to these people, you know. And suddenly I started having a panic attack, and my legs went. I imagined myself standing on that little kind of podium, and then having collapsing. And I kept on, that image just kept on going and going. And I just, every time I thought about that, my legs got so weak, I had to sit down. And I thought, oh my God. So eventually, when I went to speak, my ward manager had to lift me up onto the stage, and I held onto the table, and there was a laptop just like it's now here, and I was dangling, and people see I was dangling, because I thought if I put my feet down, I'll go under the table. And then eventually, the lights turned out, so I couldn't see anyone. And then I started reading out, quite obviously nervous, and I was very young at that time. And then when it finished, people stood up and gave me a standing ovation because they realized how difficult this was, standing up in a and they came on the screen and shook my hand, says, "Shuja, can I have your email? I would really love this," because the program was very good. I did a fantastic job. So they all wanted some to learn about it, and I felt really euphoric. I said, "Wow, this is such a good feeling." So when I came back, I said to my ward manager that I need to do more presentations. I need to practice this. And what I didn't realize, now I realize, it's called braided exposure. Yeah, facing up to your fears. So I started presenting challenging behavior to managing challenging behavior to my colleagues, and then other wards from the hospital started coming and sitting into my lectures. And then they did a brain injury conference, and I spoke there. And then when I became a psychotherapist eventually, you know uh, it was a new program, so we used to go out and talk about our program, and it got a award. So I've practiced a lot. I still get nervous. I'm nervous at the moment, but that practice helped me. And even now, I realize that if there's a lecture coming up that I can give, I put my hand up and say, "Can I do that?" Sure. So that's
Absolutely.
a little background. Yeah.
Very awesome story to share. I've heard that one before, of course, but it's good that it came up. We just started getting some questions on
Oh
YouTube.
wow. Okay.
This is from Amra, which is actually my cousin and your niece. Amra, you have a great question, and we're actually going to get to that a little bit later. I've made a note of that.
Hmm.
So she's asking. Sometimes I deal with a situation which is hard to understand. I sometimes uh, can't be able to solve it, and I can't gather the energy to resolve it. So basically about denial, I think, how to deal with denial. I guess
Hmm.
maybe not doing what you're supposed to, even though you know that it's important to do, but putting it off because it's
Hmm.
uncomfortable. We can definitely get to that. I want to just make sure we make a little bit of a structure on when we go into these things. So
Sure.
let's talk a little bit about. It was nice when you shared about your patient. I think that's always nice for people to hear because we
Yeah.
have kind of specific stories to go by.
Yeah.
So if you take the years that you've been doing this now, what would be like the one thing that you've seen that all of us struggle with? So we can start there maybe. What would be that? What is it? Depression, anxiety? Is it
I
what
mean, the
would that
thing is
be?
that because life is this um, the way it is, then everybody's sad sometimes. Yeah,
Mm,
just there's sadness. It doesn't become clinical depression, you know, but it can because of continuous stresses over a period of time can become. But one of the first things that we experience is anxiety as a child. You know, we see everybody walking and we are crawling everywhere, and the one thing that's object that I want to put in my mouth, I crawl towards it, and people pick me up or move that away, and it's very frustrating as a child. So you want to stand up and walk, but it's scary. You know, your head is so much bigger than your little tiny little feet. Balancing is very hard, and you feel anxious and you cry and you get disbalanced and you probably fall down or bump into things. So that's where we first experience anxiety. And also, you know, if our parents go into a different room, you feel, oh my God, have they left me? So we feel anxious. So we all have that kind of anxiety to start off with. And then when we go to school, that's a massive anxious situation because our parents have left us. And it impacts different people differently. Yeah, of course. But that's where we first experience these kind of fears and anxieties about life.
mhm.
Yeah.
And can you go a little bit into why this happens? Because it's a little bit annoying that it happens because a lot of these fears are actually not real fears. So
Mhm,
what's really
mhm.
happening inside of the brain?
So our brain, life experience is very. We've been spending 9 months in this wonderful, comfortable place. You know, didn't need to eat, didn't need to breathe because everything was supplied by mum. You know, it was such a cozy. It's not very. There's no light in there. It's very dark, and we're relaxed, and our body's growing very fast in there. So and suddenly we come out into this bright, noisy, weird world. So it's a big shock. Yeah. As soon as the umbilical cord is cut, now I have to breathe, you know, and they turn you upside down and smack you on the bottom to make you cry. So if you cry, you have to breathe. So that's our first breath that we take, and then we have to learn to drink milk and slowly go from there, adjusting to all the noise, all the and we need to sleep a lot. And in a noisy world, that becomes a bit harder. Sure, but so our worldview is quite tiny. Yeah, and that tiny view, our mother is the most closest to us. Yeah, so we don't want to be separated from the mother because she was carrying us for so long. So now, if she puts us down and walks away, that becomes, children have a fear. Uh, we are born with two fears actually. I think falling down and loud noises. Yeah, but we start to build other fears, and um, some people have attachment issues as children. You know, when they always want to be. If as a baby we're always carried. Yeah, so we become, that becomes a habit. So if you every time you put you down, you feel anxious. You feel like, oh no, I've been left alone. So those fears kind of start to manifest from an early age.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So let's go a little
Mhm.
bit more into anxiety because I think
Mhm.
anxiety is probably
Mhm.
one of the two big things that especially younger generations struggle with a lot. I think it's something we all struggle with, but
Yeah.
especially younger generations. But we have another comment on YouTube. This
Hmm.
is from Shirin, also a cousin. Looks like there's a lot of family watching. Thank you so much for the comment. This is amazing. She says, how to deal with people's reactions when one has anxiety. For example, they start to see the person with mental health as a subject of gossip and hatred. How does one deal with that? I think
Yeah.
this is also something cool that I can bring this into my questions.
Sure.
So let's try to, because anxiety is such a big issue, let's try to make it a bit structured. But
Sure.
thanks so much for the comments. Keep them coming. Okay, so we talked a little bit about where anxiety comes from. It's pretty
Even
much
going
from the
further
beginning.
back in evolution,
Hmm.
so if you think 100,000 years ago,
Yeah.
people used to live in caves. Yeah. And every time you stepped out of a cave, there could be a dangerous animal coming to eat you. Yeah.
Mm.
Or the animal could come into the cave. So somebody has to wake up and keep a lookout for that dangerous animal. So it was quite scary. And every time you went hunting, you're fighting predators who are more adept at what you're trying to do. So they were and they could eat you. You can't eat them. We can't eat lions or tigers, but they could easily eat us. So there was very unfair advantage. And as humans, because our brain was slightly different, it had mutated into starting to thinking. We said, "Oh, what can we do?" So we looked at the monkey eating a banana or an apple and said, "Let's try it." Yeah, because the monkey is alive, so I can try it. And we said, okay, it's not as good as meat, but it keeps me alive. Yeah, so we started eating fruits and vegetables and fish,
Mm.
and we saw a bear, a jaguar going to and catching fish. So let's catch some fish. Yeah, and because we were a bit more clever in that way, and it expanded our brain. You know, yeah, because we're getting so much more nutrients. A lion, however hungry it is, it will only eat meat. If you give it a lot of hay, it will die, starve to death. Yeah.
Mm.
But humans, we will start eating grass, or we'll start eating even the dirt, whatever, because and we want to get out of that situation. So the thing is that we were hardwired, and that anxiety makes us try out different things.
Mm.
So the anxiety was very useful, very powerful. Yeah,
Mm.
sure.
So anxiety can be useful.
Yeah, and it's
Uh,
hardwired in our genes.
yeah.
Yeah, the people who were anxious survived. The people who were
Mhm.
not anxious went and
Right.
looked in the bush and got eaten by tigers,
Mm.
or went too much to the edge of the precipice and looked down and dropped.
Can you describe how anxiety feels like in the body? When do you know that your body is feeling anxiety?
Yeah, so it's everybody must have experiences, because you can't not experience anxiety, but there are certain classical signs of anxiety. So basically, we get into a fight and flight mode. Yeah, so as soon as we get into fight and flight mode, we our adrenalines produce this. Adrenal glands produce adrenaline, so it
Mm.
goes and makes a heartbeat faster. Yeah, so that's the first thing it does. It makes a heartbeat faster, and then it needs blood and oxygen. Yeah, so blood from our stomach is pumped into the heart, and
Mm.
we breathe quicker to get as much oxygen as we can. Yeah, so our breathing changes very quickly, and
Mm.
normally we breathe through the nose. But when we open a mouth and breathe gulp air, because if you're running against a lion, you go, so your mouth goes dry. Yeah.
Yeah.
So your mouth goes dry and your lungs expand to the capacity. So it's pressing against the rib cage. So you feel tightness
Mm.
in the chest. Yeah. And your muscles tense, because if you want to hit somebody or run harder, you need tense muscles. Yeah. Like
Mm.
we see athletes, boxers and athletes, they're tense muscles. And also the stomach is full of acid to digest the food that we have, to break down. But the blood is alkaline, so it protects the lining of the stomach. So when some of that blood goes to the heart for this emergency, the blood becomes acidic. So immediately start noticing that acid. So
Mm.
initially might be butterfly, or the food gets mushed up and you want to go to the toilet, or the gases produce um, it produces gases that the acid, and it pushes your bladder, so you want to wee. And that's why a lot of young children, when they're scared, they wee in their trousers. Yeah, so it has a huge consequence on our body.
Mm.
And we, because we're breathing so much oxygen, our body's not used to it. We don't
Mm.
normally do that, so it goes into our bloodstream and it makes us dizzy. Yeah,
Mhm.
so all of these things we have over the years learned to associate with anxiety. So every time
Mm.
your heart starts to flutter, we think, oh my God, there's something bad happening. It's our interpretation of the body symptom,
Mm.
whereas the body is doing exactly the right thing that it needs to do, if you're being chased by a lion. But when the line
Right.
is not real, when it's imaginary line, I
Yeah.
have a live YouTube, you know, that becomes the line. So my
Yeah.
heart's beating very fast. My mouth's a bit dry. I'm sweating. Yeah,
Mm.
because my body's producing heat with all the energy exchange. So I'm sweating, and my muscles are a bit tense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we notice that. Yeah.
So your body is put in a state of something bad is happening to us. We need to act. So I'm going to put you in that state of heightened kind of, sensitivity. So you do something. Whereas what it's actually reacting to can be as simple as you remembering something that happened in the past, which
Yeah.
might or may not happen now, but you just got triggered and then it goes. And
Sure.
is that also how panic attacks or things like that
So,
start?
so as I was saying about the fight and flight mechanism, yeah.
Mm,
So what happens is when we have this whole kind of, because like what I had in that presentation,
mm,
my legs start to go. I start creating thoughts about it. What if I can never stand? Oh my
mm,
God, that'll be terrible. So I start going into the future, and then I think, oh, has that happened to me before? So I'm jumping between the past and the future, and my body's reacting to it. And what
mhm,
happens is the more the body becomes the threat. Yeah. This whatever's happening, because you think my heart's thumping, I might get a heart attack. My mouth's
yeah.
so dry, I don't have water or something. My
Mm,
stomach's feeling so tense, cramped. My muscles are weak. I might fall down. I'm feeling dizzy. So we start interpreting this as threats. Yeah.
mm,
So what happens is this loop that's created with the
mhm.
thoughts about it. Oh, something bad's going to happen. That creates a panic attack.
So, how do human beings cope with this? Do
Sure.
they drink? Do they smoke? Do they eat? What are the things? How do we
So
deal
there's
with
a
it?
there's a good way of dealing with it, and there's
Yeah.
a not so good way, because that
Tell
feeds
us
into.
how people normally deal with it, maybe in a bad way,
All right. Okay.
but
So
a
the
very
first
human and understandable way.
First thing is, if you're feeling a bit dizzy or your
Yeah.
muscles are feeling weak, you want to sit down. Yeah.
Mm,
And your thought is, if I don't sit down, I'm going to collapse, even though
mm,
your body can't, because your blood pressure is going high. You
mm,
have to have a drop in blood pressure to collapse. So it's completely opposite. Or if you say scared of going a lift, you need to hold on to somebody so you wouldn't go outside alone. So you start creating what we call safety behaviors. Yeah.
mm,
So every time I go to a hot place, I need a glass of water. I need a bottle. If I don't drink, I might collapse. Yeah, something bad will happen to me. So we create these interpretations which are not based on reality. It's our interpretation of that moment. Yeah,
mm,
and whatever saved us the last time. Yeah. So the but with fight and flight, it's not just physical. A flight response could be, again, um, drinking alcohol or taking drugs. Yeah. So you're feeling so threatened. you know your father's just died or mother's just died. You start drinking because you're feeling so. That's one
mm.
way of dealing with it. And it helps you in the short term, so you think, oh, I'll do it again and again and
Why
again.
does it help us in the short term? What exactly happens when you
Sure.
drink, when you take drugs, when you eat chocolate or
Sure. So
whatever?
in a small kind of thing, with food, especially with food,
Mhm.
because when we're relaxed, we are in a rest and digest situation.
Mm,
So after we had a hunting and we went out and we brought back this buffalo, we eat that and we rest, and all the blood goes back to the stomach, instead
mm,
of being to the heart. So when it goes to the stomach, we immediately start to relax. Yeah,
mhm.
it means I'm okay now. Yeah.
Right.
So that's why eating food helps you feel relaxed. Yeah.
Mm.
It means that threat is over in some way. And you do it
Awesome.
again and again and again, get into a eating habit.
Perfect. I'm going to ask a couple more questions on anxiety and then we should move on because we also want
Yeah,
to
yeah.
cover some more things. I'm just going to ask you if you can move a little bit more to the right so you're more in the center of the frame. Uh,
No, this way?
the other way. There we go. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit more. Yeah. Nice.
Mhm.
Shirin says on YouTube, this is like a breath of fresh air. Thank you so much
Mhm.
for organizing this. Thank you so much for the wonderful
Yeah.
comment.
Yeah.
So,
Go on.
if you were to give people like a guide on how to handle anxiety, a
Mhm.
framework maybe, simple
Sure.
to implement, what would you say?
Mm. So one of the first things I talk to my patients who are very anxious is, you're going into the kitchen, yeah, and you're just about cooking. Like Indian food is fried onions, so you're frying some onions, just about to kind of prepare this beautiful curry,
Mm,
and the fire alarm goes, yeah, yeah, because So there's a phone call. So you go on the phone call
Mm,
and you forget about the onions because it's an important call, and they start to burn and the fire alarm
mm,
goes. Yeah. What's the first thing you do when the fire alarm goes? You check if there's a real fire. Yeah. The first thing you check, is there a real fire?
mm,
If your cupboard's on fire, everything's on fire, you jump out the window, run away and call the fire brigade. Yeah. But if it's just smoke, you open the windows and like most Asian people do, they have a cloth and they go like this to get the smoke away from the fire alarm, and it eventually dies down. Yeah.
mm,
So the first thing is to assess the situation. Is this a real danger
mm,
or is it an imaginary danger? So that's the first thing. Yeah. So when you can separate that, then you say, okay, so just like I'm open the windows to get similarly, I take a deep breath. I say, okay, correct with that breath, because when you're anxious, your breath gets shallow. It's just on the
mm,
chest, very quickly because the lungs need to get as much oxygen. But when you're relaxed, you take a deep breath through the stomach, yeah, to calm the body down. So if you can just notice that breath, which is called a mindful breath, yeah, and then it starts to slow the body down. So the heart rate slows down, the breathing slows down, and the rest of the body starts to, if you can just take 5 breaths, just sitting here, suddenly you
mhm.
notice the whole body start relaxing.
Is there are there any specific things we can do that trigger that part? Like, for example, going to the freezer and getting a piece of ice and touching that, like putting that in the palm of your hand or something. Does anything like
Sure.
that help?
So in DBT, which is dialectical behavior therapy, which
Hmm.
is mostly targeted towards people with emotionally unstable personality, or some people call borderline personality disorder,
Hmm.
people whose emotionality jumps up and down very quickly.
Hmm.
Yeah. And they say that to manage that, there's this thing called TIP, TIPP. Yeah. So T
Hmm.
is temperature. Yeah. So go and get some ice and rub it on your face, or get a bowl of basin of ice cold water and dip your
Hmm.
face in there. Yeah.
Mm.
So immediately everything calms down. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's tea, or take a cold shower. That's very
Hmm.
good if you can. Yeah. So temperature is always very good. It brings the temperature of your body down. Yeah. That
Mm.
calms you. I is intense exercise. Yeah.
Mm.
So when you've got so much adrenaline going, you need to
Yeah.
burn that adrenaline. So do
Yeah.
some star jumps, go for a run, just run on the spot, do something, start doing vacuuming. That helps. Yeah, it gives you a
Mm.
distraction as well. And then P is what we call the paced breathing. Yeah, so slowing the breathing down. So so many breath in, 4 breath in,
Hmm.
hold, 6 breath out, paced breathing. Yeah, and yeah, go on.
Yeah. So
And the
I
last one
think.
is progressive muscle relaxation. Tense your muscles and relax it.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's another one. So the tip, TIPP.
Awesome. Is there with people that have intense anxiety, and there are some people that deal with panic attacks on a daily basis, weekly
Mm.
basis, um, and I think panic attacks can pretty much feel almost exactly the same as a heart attack. Also, right? It's very intense. You
Yeah,
feel like you're dying.
sure.
If someone listening to this is in that state and really dealing with that, what can they do to help themselves, and how to seek help on that?
Sure. First of all, I mean, what we do when we treat panic is do the opposite. Yeah.
Mm,
So if you think I'm going to have a heart attack, try it out.
mm,
Let's see what happens. So they do the opposite. Yeah.
mm,
So instead of sitting down or lying down because you don't want to put any intense pressure on your heart, get up
mhm,
and jump around and see what happens. Nothing
mm.
happens. Yeah. So you're contesting that belief, because it's not about the body; it's about the
Right.
belief. Yeah. So you're contesting that belief that
Mhm,
I'm going to die. Yeah. I'm going to collapse. Okay. Let's see if I just stand up and spin myself and see what happens. Would I
mm,
collapse? Yeah. Yeah. So doing the opposite of what the panic is telling you to do,
mm,
and that dismisses that notion that, oh my god, I thought I was going to die, but I'm actually nothing happened. Yeah.
mm.
So that's the first thing, is to challenge that belief, do the opposite. It's
Are
extremely hard. It's easier said than
Yeah,
done.
yeah,
Absolutely. So a therapist, go to a therapist, see a therapist, and they will make you do these things.
yeah, absolutely. So I think that's quite a bit on anxiety. I certainly learned a lot of new things. Thank you for sharing that. So
Okay.
next big thing I think that pretty much everyone deals with or are attached to someone, a loved one that also deals with it, is depression.
Mhm, mhm.
Big topic, and I think, like, because I've dealt with this myself, maybe I'm sure you have too in some way. Um,
Sure.
I think the first thing that happens with depression is that you kind of feel that something is off, and then days go by, weeks go by, in some cases months or years go by, and you just kind of find yourself feeling like a different person. Everything is kind of different. And so I think what I struggled with, because I had my first real bout of depression at the age of 16, 17, I think, in high school.
Mhm,
And it was very difficult for me to distinguish between, like, am I just feeling low energy? Am I being lazy? Versus, is there something real happening?
mhm,
So, to anyone watching right now where they think something might be wrong, what
mhm.
are the telltale signs of being in depression versus maybe just feeling sad for a little bit of time?
Sure. So the clinical depression is that there's a score called PHQ-9. Yeah. So if you look it up, PHQ-9, it has 9 symptoms. Yeah. So it starts off with feeling down, depressed, hopeless, disinterested in doing activities that you usually do. You know, um, your appetite has changed, so either overeating or undereating. Your energy levels are down, your sleep is disturbed. So it's got these 9 questions. Obviously, the last question is about suicidality, thoughts of suicidality. So if you score 5 over 5, that means that you might be depressed. But of course, I mean, but if you score over 10, then you means you've got mild depression. Yeah. So that's a clinical way of diagnosing depression. Mm. If it goes up to beyond 15 and 20, then severe depression at 20. Yeah. It goes up to 27. So the higher that score is, that means that you are, yeah. And you have to be like that for quite a few months. Yeah. So feeling that way for a longer period, not just one intense period, like in a day, but it goes for a longer period. Yeah.
Can you describe a healthy brain versus a depressed brain? What is really the big difference there?
I mean, in neurobiological terms, that it's not reuptaking the serotonin. So
Mm.
serotonin is a chemical that makes us engage with things. Yeah. And once we have reduced serotonin, that's where so that's why they give you serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRIs, like sertraline or escitalopram, or whatever. Sorry, um, all these medications. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know all these, but and there's certain kind of other receptors that work also, nortriptyline. So you have other medication like venlafaxine or mirtazapine, which are kind of similar to, but slightly work on different channels for, yeah. So the brain is deprived and it just slows down. Yeah. So the whole process, like anxiety is a very speeded up process. Depression is a very slowed down. So all the body slows down, your energy levels are down, so you're not in that state. So that's what is kind of neurochemistry is dealing, causing some of the depression as well.
Mm. And so, for someone going through depression, um, are there is there any, I guess I'll jump in here a little bit with my own, because I have a lot of
Yeah,
experience in
please.
this, unfortunately.
Hmm.
But for me, I basically went from just being a normal kid, doing schoolwork and having fun and being active and everything, and then it felt like almost suddenly, but maybe more of a transition over a couple of weeks, where I just lost interest in life. Like, just, it was like, oh, you have this exam coming up. Oh, aren't you gonna, because you have to get the highest grade. I was like, for what? Like, why is that
Sure.
important?
Yeah.
So it's like it's sunny outside, and then suddenly there's a storm, and you
Mhm.
just don't want to go outside because
Yeah.
it's like so hard to get out.
Mhm.
So whereas before, going out was just a normal part of the day, you go out, have fun. It's like, it's so cold, and I just don't want to do it. It just, everything feels very
Mm.
gray. And so I think a lot of people, I think perhaps depression is one of the bigger problems in the
Mhm.
world. It's why we lose people who decide to end their own lives. Unfortunately, it is the leading cause of that. So, um, if a person is feeling like they are in that state, I would tell that person that don't overthink it too much and don't think that you're being lazy, because especially if you have documented in your life that you are a very different kind of person. I mean, why would you want to be a lazy person intentionally?
Sure.
It just doesn't make sense. Even
Yeah.
though people around you might be saying, "Oh, you're just not doing what you're supposed to. You just should exercise. You should do X, Y, Z." You should probably do those things anyway. But it doesn't go on like this, right? There's
Mhm.
got to be a reason for it. But I
Sure.
think I probably spent several years in that state without anyone telling me like, this is how it is and this is what you got to do.
Yeah.
So if we were to give someone watching here like a short guide on
Mhm.
first how to identify it and
Yeah.
then what to do about it, because I think people lose years of, sometimes decades of their life just being in this state. And the more you spend in this state of, I don't even know if this is real, maybe I should just man up or whatever, woman up or whatever, and do the things I'm supposed to, years go by, decades go by, and you just suffer silently. And then suddenly, you know,
Mm.
you do something bad to yourself, and everyone is like in shock, like, how did this happen? So this is a really sensitive topic,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and I think we all have experienced this ourselves or have a loved one that go through it. But I
Mhm.
don't think any of us have a very good framework for dealing with it. And
Sure.
oftentimes, when we talk to these people, we can come off as like experts in this, and I'm going to give you advice when you have no idea what you're talking about.
Mm,
And then
mm,
this
mm.
person just thinks, I mean, when I come to talk to you about it, you just give me a lecture anyway. So like you don't even care about what it
Yeah.
is feeling like to go through this
Yeah.
by asking me questions and learning about it without any judgment. So would love to kind
Mhm.
of give, because I know there's millions of people, hundreds of millions of people right now in this state. I know how bad it can be.
Sure.
So yeah, if we could just kind of give them
Mm,
something
mm.
useful, hopefully, so that they can
Yeah.
start doing stuff.
Yeah. As I said, that with anxiety, it's easier to treat. You can help people to challenge in the moment, and they go, oh wow, my fear didn't happen, so I'm okay. So they repeat that and they feel better. But depression is harder. It's very harder, and that's why there's so many different. There's medication. There's so many different therapies that come from medication. So you've got CBT, you've got counseling, you've got IPT, you've got psychodynamic counseling. You have all these different kind of therapies that people do, because not everything the same thing works. But because I'm a CBT therapist, that's my main modality that I trained in, is what Aaron Beck in the 50s and 60s talked about, is looking at your cognitions. Because we have beliefs, we have core beliefs. Yeah, we all have core beliefs about ourselves, about others, about the world. Yeah. So the first core belief, like I grew up thinking I'm not good enough. So that was a core belief. I was very lucky that that one failure changed my life. Yeah. And good things came out, and I'm in a very good place, and I'm very happy now. But with some people that doesn't happen. Yeah. So if they have a core belief, I'm not good enough, I'm a failure, so they start doing less and less and less, and the work, and then life becomes, it just starts to kind of they're proving that belief, that negative belief, that I'm not good enough, I'm not useful, I'm somehow unlovable, because their parents needed to work when they were kids, put them in a crash or something, and you think, my parents don't love me anymore. So as you grow up believing that, then you create that lens that you see the world through, which we call the mental filter. So seeing the world through that lens, you can't see any other perspective. Yeah, you can't see, because you're constantly ticking. Oh, again, see, I was a failure here. I was a failure here. Pass something. Oh, that was too easy. Anybody could have done it. Dismiss it. Yeah. So we kind of get stuck in this dialogue in our head that I'm not good enough, I'm failure, I'm broken, defective. If somebody's slightly disabled in some way, then they say, oh, I'm defective, I'm weak. Yeah. So those kind of core beliefs about ourselves, other people are better than me, the world is not a good place, because people tease you, or you're not fitting in. So these core beliefs is, and the first thing is that you look at those core beliefs and you say, is there an alternative way to look at it? Yeah. So that's why Beck said that, can you reframe it in a different way? Can you look at it in a way that is, so if I get somebody with this, I'm a failure. Okay. So just today, just for one day, notice anything that you did okay. You know, didn't fail, just did okay. Write those little. 4 or 5 things down and see what happens, and then read them to you. Oh, okay, today I this good thing, yeah, and then spread them a bit wider. And how was this week? Okay, what were the good things that happened this week? So you're changing the narrative in your head, yeah. So slowly, then we do like a positive data log. This is kind of looking at good things that we did. Uh, but now there's a new school which says that before doing all the cognitive, because your brain is already tired, your brain
Mm.
doesn't want to engage in all of this. So they said what you start with is behavioral activation. So instead of changing the brain, change the body. Yeah. So
Mm.
get up and do something. So you
Mhm.
start off with, say, don't want to go out, don't want to do anything. Okay, just open the window for 5 minutes and just look outside. Take a gulp
Mm.
of fresh air. Yeah, just for 5 minutes. Yeah. So you see other people. What can you see? Okay, and then do 6 minutes, 7 minutes, and then start to go outside the door and look at outside and step outside to the garden or something and look at out and see what you can see. So you're changing that narrative. You're lessening that story that's going on in your brain and replacing it with other things which are okay. Yeah. So what you do, and of course, I would always recommend to go to a therapist because I'm one of those. Yeah. Go to your therapist and speak to them about it, and they can give you what to do, what would be helpful. So what we call is a activity sheet. Yeah. So what are the times when you feel worst? What are you doing? I'm lying in my bed and thinking about things. Okay. Can you get up and read a book? Can you go and watch a movie? Can you call a friend? Yeah. Can you go and just do the dishes or clean something or step out? So you just start to bring in activity. And once your activity starts, the story starts changing in your head anyway.
Yeah, I think I found that to be very helpful,
Mm,
and it's because when you're constantly just in your brain, and I think in the modern world we're
mm,
programmed to be constantly in our brains, and
sure.
we have this illusion that whatever is
Mm,
going on in our brain is mapping to reality exactly, but it's just kind of like a hallucination or a simulation that you're
mm,
running in your brain that is always wrong, but it's
mhm.
just about being less wrong over time. And you
Sure.
got to get out of that and do
Yeah.
anything that reduces thinking, and especially overthinking, and just doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's one version of the world you're seeing,
Mm,
but it's
yeah.
not the only version, and it's not
No,
the real
it's
version.
your
It's a
version. Yeah.
interpreted version of the world. And if
Yeah.
you can change the frame and just say, let's look outside this frame and see what can I
Yeah.
see from another angle, and you say, okay, oh, it looks a bit different. Yeah.
Mm,
And that's where the
absolutely.
narrative starts to change. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that several years ago, I made a decision of just being grateful all the time. And
Mhm,
I
mhm,
just find, and people kind of laugh about it when they get to know me a little bit, that I think like this, but it'll be the smallest thing. But I'll be just
mm.
walking outside and I'll be like, oh my God, I'm so grateful that I actually have legs I can walk with, because so many people don't have that or they lose it.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
so a
Yeah.
simple act of just walking or just being able to see crystal clear, even though I have horrible vision, but using contact lenses or glasses, I live in a time where that is possible, or
Yeah.
having a hot shower or something. And when you
Mhm.
put that kind of because when you're depressed, you're focusing a lot on what you don't have, and
Sure.
then or what you don't will not have or something, or what you
Yeah.
lost maybe. But then
Mm.
when you reframe it and you go, all things considered, I'm in a pretty wonderful position here,
Mm.
that I just get to breathe using my own body actually. And it
Yeah.
can be anything that you
Absolutely.
and you it gives
Sure.
you that instant perspective.
Yeah,
um,
there's this guy called John Kabat-Zinn, and he talks about mindfulness. So
mhm,
this is being mindful of what's going on actually in
yeah,
this moment. Yeah, and he says that if you're breathing, you're better than somebody who's not breathing. So
yeah,
show appreciation to that breath.
exactly.
Oh, I'm breathing. Wow,
Yeah,
this is brilliant. Thank you. Thank the
yeah.
body. If you're religious, mindfulness is a prayer. Yeah, you can take it as a
Mm,
prayer, and that's where we show gratitude, show thankfulness for something. Yeah. So
absolutely.
gratitude is very important. Yeah. And it's in the moment because all
Yeah,
the problems are either in the past or the future.
yeah,
And if you can drop those and come back to the moment, in this
yeah.
moment, then the
And
story starts to change.
also, I feel zooming out from just
Mm.
you helps a lot. I mean, if we go back to our earlier
Yeah.
part in the conversation where you were feeling like you're not smart enough, but you yourself
Mm.
said that your brother and your father was a genius. And let's take that to be true. If that's really the case, you're comparing yourself to two other people that are both geniuses. That's a pretty hard way. How are you
Sure.
going to come top on that, right?
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
not
yeah.
comparing yourself to the other students in your class that are struggling,
Yeah.
right? So that's also how we
Mhm.
selectively compare ourselves to people in
Yeah,
our life,
yeah.
and then we will always lose that game, right?
Sure, sure.
So
So what we got get into like a vicious cycle. We compare ourselves to the people,
yeah.
especially the people above us, the people who are doing better than us
Hmm.
in the things that we feel that it only matters. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we get very self-critical. We get very angry, but why am I not good enough? Why am I not doing this? Yeah.
Yeah.
So you shout at yourself, and then you step incredibly high standards. I should be doing this. I must be doing that. And you
Yeah.
don't do that, then you get stuck in that vicious cycle of
Mm.
comparing yourself, being angry, and then creating unrelenting standards.
Absolutely. I want to move on from depression, but
Sure.
my last question here is
Yeah.
what has been, because depression is such a global problem and
Mhm,
such
mhm.
so human, and any type of mental health issue that you have, whether it's something very severe like schizophrenia or bipolar or something, or you have something lighter,
Mhm.
depression is usually a component of that.
Yeah, yeah.
So, what would you say currently
Mhm.
has shown to actually give results? What actually works for a depressed brain?
Yeah, I mean, for depression, it's always compared against medication. So
Mm.
they say if somebody's severely depressed, the first thing is to look at medication because it's the scaffolding. Yeah. So it's the scaffolding that gives you a kind of a frame. And then you can build, once the person is slightly out of that depression because of the
Mhm.
serotonin that's giving a better kind of, process in the brain, then you can start engaging in therapy. So a
Mm.
combination of therapy and the medication helps you get out of that.
Mm.
So that's usually the first line of treatment. Yeah. The first thing is to nip it in the bud the moment you feel
Mhm.
that, but there's so less awareness about it, so less education, so that
Mm.
you notice what's happening. Say, oh, I might be getting depressed. Let's do something else. Let's get
Mm.
myself engaged in something. Yeah. What are your values? Engaging with your values and working towards something that you can do rather than things you can't do.
Absolutely.
Mhm,
Let's
mhm.
bring in a question here before we move on, because
Yeah,
Shireen had
sure.
a question earlier where it says, how to deal with people's reactions to when one has anxiety. I'll generalize that to anxiety, depression as well. For
Yeah.
example, they start to see the person with mental health as a subject of gossip and hatred.
Mhm,
How
mhm,
does one
mhm.
deal with that? The
Sure.
way that I understand this, just to kind of rephrase it a little bit, I guess, is if you are identified as a person who has mental health issues, I guess people can start
Mm.
talking about you in a negative way. So,
Mhm.
how does that person going through that deal with that? Any advice or thoughts on that?
Sure, sure. And again, in mindfulness, they said that you don't control other people.
Yeah.
The only person you control is yourself. Yeah. What
Mm.
other people are doing is their problem. Yeah. You are doing something. I'm doing something good for Shuja. So if I make that a project that I'm going to work on Shuja and get him in a better place. Yeah. So instead of listening to what Rafid is saying about me or what Shirin is saying about me, I'm just focused on Shuja and say, okay, can I detached from other people's judgment, or yeah, because that's what we call mind reading. We're reading their mind and
Mm.
interpreting it in our own negative way.
Yeah, and I'll
Mm.
also add
Mhm.
my little take on that.
Sure,
I
you have
think,
more experience in that, so
I
yeah, go
mean,
on.
in some ways, I guess, but
Yeah.
what we're doing right now is this thing that I'm doing personally for myself, because I know that when I was younger, especially, and much more lost than I am now, I would have loved something like this, right? Because
Mhm, mhm,
these are things that people. It's very hard to get quality information in this area, and you can end up just feeling very alone in it, maybe watching some YouTube videos or reading online, and it's sometimes that information is not that great. It's very difficult to talk to people about this. You can feel very alone. But I think what I found uh, the most useful here is that
mhm,
anything that you do like this that isn't what everyone else does as well, like going to work and doing a job, earning money, coming back, is going to be seen as weird by
mhm,
other people. Like, I'm sure family members watching this right now are talking about us.
mhm,
And
mhm,
I don't really care about that, but that's easier said than done. I've had some experience in this over time. But regardless of what they are saying, the alternative to that is them not even thinking about you. And anything that you do at some point, especially in the early days, will be seen as weird by other people
mhm,
until it has become your thing.
mhm,
So Now people know in my family as well that I do this type of stuff, so they know to expect this. But for
Mhm.
you, it's going to be also, I guess, something new, because now there's
Mm.
going to be videos with you here on Instagram and YouTube and stuff. It's going to be a new thing. And
Sure.
now when I meet people also, because I've been doing this for a couple of years, my audience is still pretty small, but people already say that I've been watching your videos and I've seen this, and they kind of feel like they've gotten this context on my life, even though we haven't been talking one to one. And it does feel a bit weird, but that's the price that you have to pay to just live your life, because otherwise you can
Mm.
just be scared to do anything, right? I mean,
Mm.
because you could say something and it could offend another person, right? And so what, should you just stop talking altogether? I mean, part of being human is just doing things and not really knowing what you're doing and learning on the way. And in today's world, you're able to do it like this so that people can just watch in the hundreds or thousands. But I
Mm.
feel like you yourself, I feel like you said it right when you said that it's out of your control, and you
Mhm.
have to make a decision, like, this is what I feel like is right for my life to do right now, and I know that I'm going to get people talking
Mhm.
about me. And that could also be you being more open about your mental health struggles, and
Yeah.
you got to be okay being labeled that person who is XYZ. And
Yeah.
because on a day-to-day basis, all they're doing is just talking, and talking doesn't lead to anything. And that's always the thing throughout human history. It's like people that are doing things and other people that are watching the people do the thing and talking about them. That's the
Mhm.
only two groups, right? And you gotta figure out which group you want to be a part of.
Absolutely. And the
So
other thing is that you're not doing it deliberately.
yeah,
If it was in your control, you would have changed it. Yeah. You would
yeah.
have been doing normal things that people expect you to do. It's
Mhm.
happening because either neurobiology or your life experiences, or the way you see yourself, or, the way other people react,
Mm.
responding to their reaction. So you're not doing it deliberately. Yeah. So stop blaming yourself. The first thing is to stop self blame
Yeah,
and show compassion.
absolutely. And I think one of the things I learned growing up and understanding that um, anything if you go on the street and something bad is happening to a person, most people will not do anything, because they're like, why should I do something? It'll be so weird if I go, right? And so there is that kind of social aspect to this whole
Mhm.
thing. Most people will just default to the thing, which is just talk about other people doing things. And
Mm.
it does take a little bit of courage to go like, no, I don't actually agree with what you said. And
Mhm.
the other
Mhm.
person says, what, I'm so much older than you should
Mm.
respect me. Well, no, I don't think that's the case. So I think you got to be just okay with the uncomfortableness, and then over time you just get used to it and it doesn't bother you that much. Hope that
Mm.
answered your question, Shirin. And then I also, before we go, maybe we should we're getting some more stuff here. Amra also asked earlier about the dealing with a situation where, let's see, let me read it again. Sometimes I deal with a situation which is hard to understand, and I sometimes can't solve it, and I can't gather the energy to resolve it. So I wanted to ask how to deal with denial. I guess maybe this is more like, if I'm understanding it right, um, something is very hard to deal with and I don't want to deal with it.
Mhm.
How do you, because I think everyone can,
Yeah.
I've gone through this, I go through this
Yeah.
every day. How do
Yeah.
you deal with hard things and things that are maybe
Mm.
uncomfortable that you got to deal with?
Sure. So the first thing is to seek support. If you yourself can't deal with it, absolutely ask other people who you think on your team. People that are close to you who can help you. Ask for their help. Never try to do it by yourself. You know, because they will be happy to help. Unfortunately, with Indian families, they take over and overdo it, but they need to help you to do it yourself. Yeah. So ask for help. Also, if there's a hard task, to chunk it down into smaller tasks. Take the easiest task, get that out of the way, then the other task, get that out of the way. So you're already halfway through. Yeah. As I say, that you don't climb Mount Everest in one go. You go to base camp first. Yeah. Before you can replenish and then go to the next camp and next. There are 5 camps. Yeah. So it's about kind of, okay, what's the first thing that I can just tackle about it? Because when you see Mount Everest, it's, oh, I have to climb that mountain. The whole thing is that you become obviously avoidant. It's too much. Yeah. And then you procrastinate because it's a difficult task. It's hard. So you start to kind of put it off, put it off, put it off. And the more you put it off, the bigger it gets. So the first thing is to say, what's the simplest thing off for this that I can just get through? Yeah. Yeah. Then you do that, do that. And seeking support is absolutely essential. Don't do
Absolutely
it
agree with
first.
that. I would say the same
Mhm,
two things. One more thing
mhm,
I'll add to that that makes it just easier for me is
mm,
when you have something inside of your brain, it can be a little bit overwhelming dealing with
mhm.
it. What I try to do is brain dumping it into a notes application or
Oh, yeah.
just using paper. Try to
Mm,
map out the thing and get
mm.
distance from the problem in your brain and
Sure.
on paper. And then when you look at it, you go, okay, this is something I can maybe do.
Yeah,
And you
yeah.
can start that process. Just
It
don't
helps you
try to
zoom
keep it
out.
here. Yeah,
Yeah. If you look at put it in paper and you're looking at it from a distance, it helps you zoom out. But otherwise, it's too close and it
exactly.
becomes overwhelming. So yeah.
Absolutely. Hope
Mhm,
that answered your question, Amra, and let us know if you want to ask a follow up. Sabah says, another family member, thanks for joining, Sabah. Thoroughly enjoying this podcast. We hear about ADHD, ADD. Yeah, we're going to touch on that before we end now, the last part. As if the symptoms have become extremely common now. If it is becoming more and more common now, what's the reason? Very good thing, and we can use
mhm,
this to go into the new one.
mhm.
And Nihal says, another family member, my uncle, you took a very courageous step for raising very important issue and bringing an expert. We appreciate your initiative. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that kind, wonderful comment. So yeah, let's go into this whole thing of ADHD, ADD, autism, and dyslexia, and all these things, because
Sure.
we no one even heard about these things 30 years ago, and now it feels like all we're hearing about are these things. So
Mhm,
let's do it in a structured way. So, can we talk about, like, at the brain level? Let's take a quote unquote normal brain. I don't know if there's even such a thing. And
mm,
then what's happening there that's taking us into ADHD, autism, and all that. So we can start from there, and
sure.
then we can go deeper into each of them separately.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, no brain is wired similarly. Yeah. So everybody's brain is different. Yeah. It's people call it the normal brain, the normal curve, and people in there. But um, the thing is that these are spectrum disorders. Neurodivergence, what we call it, is a spectrum disorder. Yeah. So I might be zero on something, but I might be high on something else. Yeah. So when I see myself in terms of when I learned about these neurodivergence thing, oh, I do this, but I don't do this. Yeah. Yeah. So it's more circular with different aspects of that symptoms of that problem. So I'm very good at socializing, but I'm organized or I arrange things in a certain way. So that's but it doesn't impact me. My life is okay. I can manage that. When you're slightly higher on more of the spectrums, then it starts to just seep into your. And with some people on the higher end of the spectrum, it can be even more. You don't know how to socialize properly, or you don't know, yeah, or your attention is deficit. I mean, there's something that that's changing how they call ADHD to vast, so varied attention brain. Yeah,
Mm,
and the thing is that I don't know if people like superheroes, but every superhero is actually a neurodivergent person. Yeah,
mm,
so they have a superhero quality that they're very good at, but other things that they're really like. If you see, say, Flash Gordon, he's got ADHD, or if you see Batman, he's probably got PTSD. He has PTSD, of course. He
mm,
went through a massive trauma in his life. There's similar. I mean, all the superheroes are kind of new. I don't know if it was Invincibles. I think they brought these people, and they're all kind of neurodivergent and struggling with certain things, and so it was quite eye-opening that okay, we all have specialities. We all have things
mm,
that we're good at, yeah, and the things that we struggle at. But when we compare ourselves, then it becomes a big thing. I think because it's more talked about,
mhm,
people are noticing these things a lot more. I get people who are in their 60s, 70s, never knew they had dyslexia. They got told off all the time. They couldn't, their spelling is awful and they couldn't read or write. But as we see in that fantastic film, Stars on Earth, by Amir Khan, is
mhm,
that, you have an incredible ability to think outside the box, because
mm,
we are all in, to be in the box. So the boy, in that film, he was thinking outside the box. They said that, like, Einstein, he could think outside the box and see the stars and planets and imagine himself. That becomes, but he was not very good at talking. Yeah, he struggled with that. Yeah,
mm,
uh, people with ADHD might have attention deficit, but they have periods of intense focus that they can really work hard. People with, as I think it was you who told me that Bill Gates goes to certain universities and picks up the autistic children because they're
Mm,
fantastic, phenomenal at looking at patterns and coding. And I have a cousin here, and he said that somebody just said that I have ASD. I said, what do you mean? He said, am I autistic? I said, how do I know? So we talk. He's a computer genius, and he said, if I see a code on a different computer, immediately I can see where the code's wrong. Yeah, and I go and change it for colleagues. That's pattern matching. That's amazing
mm,
pattern matching, which is a strength that you have. That's why you're so amazing in computers. Yeah. So we all have strengths in different areas, and people, yeah. We can use it to our advantage, or we can beat ourselves about it. It's just
mm.
being in the news a lot more. People are talking about it, especially the pandemic. I think a lot of people were on their own and they
Yeah,
started struggling or whatever. So it was talked about a lot more. But everybody's on the spectrum somewhere.
yeah.
Mhm.
So I think a lot of people were also on TikTok for hours, and you just
Yeah,
start you're like, oh, that's so me, and then immediately the algorithm pushes you
sure.
into that little corner of the world, and so that
Absolutely.
that can be maybe a little bit dangerous, where it's
Mm.
like over diagnosed. But let's start with
Self-diagnosed. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So let's start with ADHD because I think that's the thing that most people think that they have. Are there a couple of things like what do you do if you're thinking I struggle with these things or I have these things. I might be ADHD. What do you do?
Sure. So first of all, we look at how is it impacting your life? What's going
Mm,
on? What areas of your life is being impacted? So we're not treating ADHD because you can't treat. It's not a disease that you have. Yeah,
mm,
it's your brain is wired that way. So you find, okay, what are the areas that you think in your life is being impacted? Can we tweak that a little bit? Yeah. If you're struggling in focus because your attention deficit, okay, can we do it in small chunks? So we look at like chunking things. I said, do this, go off and because I'm very good at playing video games. So you say, okay, I'll play my video games after I've done 5 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour of this work that I need to do. Okay, give that as a reward to yourself. So chunking is very important in small bits rather than having one go at things. Um, yeah. What else about ADHD? I'm not very good at ADHD. Something that
mm.
I'm still kind of teaching myself, educating
Yeah,
myself.
I th-
That's one of the first things I look at.
yeah. I think from a
Mm,
parent point of view, parents with kids that are perhaps like under the age of 20, let's say, I
mm,
think oftentimes they feel like their kids are not able to focus. I
yeah.
think that's a big one where they can't sit still
Mhm.
and do a math problem for 15 minutes. Oh,
Sure.
too much less scatterbrain, that must be ADHD. So if you could speak a little bit about that, because I know that's
Sure.
something I deal with because I teach kids, and
Mhm.
parents are constantly telling me that their kids are
Mm.
struggling with this.
And when we were kids, we all read books, yeah, because we didn't have anything else, yeah.
Yeah.
So either we're playing outside or reading a book. So your ability to focus, and if I'm playing a cricket match, I need to focus on the ball. I need to kind of have that kind of ability. So I'm practicing my brain. But
Mm,
now, with TikTok and Insta Reels and Facebook or whatever,
yeah.
it's very fast.
Just
The
like
brain,
this.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, it's constantly looking for new
Yeah.
things, and that's why you're not practiced. So one of the things would be to practice. So when I tell my clients, try reading a small paragraph every day,
Mm,
and then two paragraphs. Training your brain, like you train your body, is training your brain to focus a bit more and bit more and bit more. You won't be perfect. You won't be like super focused, um, um, somebody else, but you can actually train it to be better than it is
mm.
as focus.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll also speak a little bit on this from like more of
Mm,
a teaching, a teacher with some experience with kids, especially.
mhm, mhm.
I feel like the whole problem with focus is more a problem of kids today demanding that what they put their focus towards should be something that they care about a lot more than we did when we were kids because the alternatives were not there. So when we
Mm,
were sitting and doing homework, what would we do if we didn't do homework? TV even wasn't always accessible to us. I mean, phones didn't exist in the way they do now. Netflix, like high quality streaming of anything that's ever created right there, that didn't exist. So you might as well
mhm.
do your homework, right? So it's easier to be stuck on that math problem for
Mhm.
20 minutes versus 2 minutes. And I think
Sure,
for today, it's the hardest time in human history to grow up, I feel like, for kids, because
sure.
the alternatives are just like, engineered to keep your attention. and then your mother tells you to do your math homework for 10 minutes. So I think
Sure.
what I try to do is like, let's try to figure out something that you do care about, and once we do, and my focus now is like more kind of game development basically,
Mm.
right, or video or something like that. Then you see that they are able to actually focus for
Sure.
so it's more
It's,
of a
yeah.
problem of, yeah, like
Mm.
it's just not interesting enough for them, and they're not going to sit there and be bored through it
Mm.
like we did, because their brain is being programmed where they get their iPad and
Mm.
they click and they get exactly what they want, and that their brain now is programmed in that way. Where for us it was more like, if I want to watch a
Sure.
movie, that's I go to the store and get a DVD or VHS, whatever, and then it's a whole like week long project. So it's very different, and so in that way it's
Sure.
unreasonable of us for us to,
But also,
yeah,
children are getting phones and tablets at a very young age. I see like
yeah,
6-month-old kids looking at something, or 1 year
exactly,
old.
yeah,
They know how to click and how to move. Yeah,
yeah,
very quickly. So you're training them not to pay long attention,
yeah,
long time.
exactly.
Focused attention. So
Mhm.
yeah, of course, when they grow up, that's all they know.
Exactly. And I think this is part of a longer discussion, but like we're
Sure.
seeing this come up in parenting, but also teachers are struggling
Mhm.
with this, because you're competing with the biggest companies in the world that have the
Absolutely.
smartest people in the world, uh, engineering everything on
Mm.
these magical devices, so that you will spend as much of your time there as possible. Netflix
Mhm.
is trying to get you not to sleep at 11 a.m. but at 3 a.m. so that you can binge Stranger Things, for example. And so
Mm.
it's how are you supposed to compete with that as a parent, right?
Sure.
So if you're watching this as a parent, you got to understand that these are very things are moving so fast now, and it's not as easy.
Mm.
To deal with this. So if you have a child that is kind of showing some signs of ADHD, it might very well be that it's something that where they're demanding that whatever they spend their time on is really something that they care about,
Yeah.
more so than classic ADHD. I mean, certainly something that does exist, but I think it's
Mm.
it's way overblown these days. Like I feel like every other person I talked to today feels like they have it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Definitely.
Mm. Okay, so we also have. If we also can talk a little bit about autism spectrum disorder, what are some of the signs that your child might have that, or you might have that, to look for and what to do? Um,
Sure. As I said, that it's a spectrum disorder. So we all on the spectrum somewhere, and it's a
yeah.
circular rather than a linear. Yeah. So
Hmm.
so some people are very good at talking, but not good at other things. Um, um, what other kind of um, um, symptoms of um, ASD again? So everybody is different, and they all have their kind of spectrums that they're good at and spectrums that they struggle with. Yeah.
Hmm.
um, of course, with children are very high on all the spectrums, that becomes very difficult. Yeah. They might not be able to talk. We have a boy here, one of my cousins, his family friend. Their child is mute. I mean, he's not a child. He's almost like in late teens or 20s, early 20s. He's mute, completely mute. He
Hmm.
can't communicate, but he's a maths genius. He created an app for autistic children, and
Wow.
and Google invited him over to come to England from India,
Really?
to come and work on this app and uh, create a pattern on it. He said, no, I don't want to.
Hmm.
But he's very good at that. His master, his ability to focus on that one thing becomes
Hmm.
incredible. Yeah. So that's where it's the opposite in some ways of, you find that if you see children who've been diagnosed with autism,
Hmm.
they have hobbies which are very focused, like playing Lego or collecting stamps, or those the olden days, but hyper focused on one thing but not on other things.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Amra is asking, the term virtual autism is gaining attention. Does it reflect a real condition, or is it a warning sign about our digital habits? Anything to say there?
Virtual, I've never heard of that. That's a new thing.
Yeah, I
Probably
haven't heard of it
I
either.
might need to
I
get.
guess I guess what she's
Mhm.
talking about here more is that because, like, if a child was growing up 30 years ago, uh, they would not have access to a lot of the things they have today. So they would be spending a lot of their time on a playground versus, pacified by an iPad 3 hours a day. So I think that is even quote unquote normal brains are being more kind of nudged into
Mm.
certain like spectrums, like more
Sure,
on
sure.
the spectrum, because that you
Mm.
just you're there are, I think, making friends is much harder today for people than it was before, where it was just happening more naturally, where now people have a much more of a tendency to sit by themselves, consume content on a device, not connect as much with the other human
Mm.
beings. So I
Yeah,
think there that can also play
yeah.
a
Mhm. No, no,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. Sure. And if you believe that you have autism, then you start behaving some of the traits.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it could be
Mm.
that it's more learned than it's real.
Yeah, I think with any of these things, for me, what helps is that we're not talking about binary zeros and ones. We're talking about psychology. We're talking about like gray areas, and we're talking
Mhm.
about very difficult things to understand. But I think when you educate yourself on these different things and see, okay, I do show signs of these things, then if I did have something like that, how does a person who has that, how does their brain think differently? So for me,
Mhm, mhm,
I also am probably like more neurodivergent than not on that spectrum. And once I started learning about that, I understood that there are certain things that humans show that other humans maybe have an easier time picking up those things naturally,
mhm,
and then just acting accordingly. Like for example, if someone is crying near you, you probably want to sit next to them and console them, taking your right arm and stroke their
mhm,
back or something. It'll make them feel better.
mm,
Now I have this thing that in my brain I go like, and it doesn't happen naturally, but it's like I connect that and I try to do that thing. Whereas before I would just kind of be a little bit uncomfortable, not knowing what to do. So I would kind of feel bad for feeling normal while the other person was crying. So I would make myself feel more sad and things like that. So there's a lot of these kind of interpersonal
mm, mm,
human relationship type of things also that some of us maybe struggle with a little bit more, where other people find it naturally. For a lot of people it's harder to keep eye contact while
mhm.
talking or something
Yeah.
like that. So a lot of these things, it's as simple as these things. It's not something big and bad that's happening. It's like minor changes, and not understanding when you've maybe said something that's a little bit too direct. So another person's feeling might be hurt. So
Mhm,
you can
mhm,
say it in a more softer way, but really get your point across. So a lot of these things have, and of course with the focusing thing, some people I think have an easier time focusing for 10 hours on something they care about, and they're only thinking about their work all the time, versus other people that are able to kind of say like, I've turned my laptop off, now I can think about other things. So I think it's just these things, everyday things, that we are kind of slightly more there versus there, and the collection of those things get called ADHD or autism or
mhm,
something like
mhm.
that. Yeah. Mm.
Definitely.
So I think we're now at 1 hour 37 minutes. So we should
Mm.
think about concluding this live stream that I had a really good time doing. Actually, I think we're
Yeah.
going to get a lot of good content out of this, and I'd like to thank everyone that joined on YouTube, Facebook, X, and LinkedIn. And thank you also for everyone that left a comment. Let's see here. Amra says, yes, she heard about that and she's going to start writing things down, and simple tasks, writing those down first. Uh, Good job. Good work on that, I guess, and good luck on you with that. I know it's a big thing to deal with, and
Sure.
so wish you all the best. And thank you so much, Rafid Bhaiya, for organizing this wonderful session with Mama. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
joining. And yeah, that's it for this one. Thank you so much for tuning in,
Mhm.
and yeah, thank you so much, Abby, for joining.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And thank you, Rafid, for inviting me.
Awesome.
Really
Okay,
enjoyed it. Yeah, sure.
that's it for this one,
Okay.
and until next.